I knew I was going to have a problem with Zoom, so I fired it up at 10 minutes to 10, and it just spun. And I'm looking down at like 4 past 10. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Figured you hadn't joined yet. But it actually, now I realize it's Safari.
Dude, who uses Safari still?
I do. It's easy. It's there. I just open Safari and go. And there's a couple of things I can't use it with. Apparently, Zoom is one of them. I can
You're
only,
one of those people that's keeping it going.
I guess. I don't know. It's just,
You're like that dude that still has at AOL.com.
No, I'm not. But my guys out back are printing skateboards right now for a guy whose email address is AOL.com.
I get that all the time, and I'm like, how the hell do you still have that email address?
Yeah.
It's not even a company.
I have no access to my Hotmail. Like it just, I didn't carry it over to Outlook or whatever they wanted you to do like 3 years ago. So the email address I had since high school is dead and gone, even though, things like my Delta Sky Club are attached to it and things like that. I'm like, oh, I guess that's just all gone forever.
Yeah. It's like my Microsoft account is like that, where it's like an email address I had like 20 years ago. I can't even get in it. So like if I ever need to recover password or anything like that, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I get it. So anyway, and it's all good. What do you want to talk about?
Did you hear about this whole thing with Los Angeles Apparel, like staying open? You didn't hear that? Like,
No.
what's that dude's name? I can never remember it. The dude who owned American Apparel.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about, but I forget his name too.
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up real quick because the numbers are crazy. Well, anyway, they were open. Obviously, I think they were making masks and like all this other stuff, but they had like all the staff there doing everything, and now there's like a huge outbreak. Yeah. Los Angeles Apparel factory shut down after 300 workers were contracted coronavirus.
That's horrifying on a lot of levels.
Dude, 300 people that work at your fucking facility all get corona.
You can't replace that. You can't, like, there's nothing you could do. And what I know, being all the way on the other side of the country about Los Angeles, because a lot of my customers are based in Los Angeles, they had mandates of what they have to do going all the way back to March. And what Kings Road, one of my biggest customers, their warehouse is in Los Angeles. It's Epitaph Records, and the nerve center of everything they do in the music industry. And I was told that they had to they didn't have to shut down, but they had to limit the amount of people that could come to work. So, and I'm making this up, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was maybe one person per 100 square feet of space, something along those lines.
Right.
So normally for somebody like Kings Road, where they have a staff of maybe 30 people that are packing and shipping mail order and record distribution orders and all that kind of stuff, they had to immediately cut back to only 10 or 12 doing the same work. And of course, e-commerce for most bands has exploded during the shutdown.
Right.
And at times they've been behind a month to 5 weeks on shipping out orders because they can't legally put more people in the building to pack and ship. And it's not safe. And even if you tried to run around the clock, again, you'd be operating not safely because there's, overturn and, it sticks to things and everything else. So they've just been doing the best with it.
So what did you do before all the printing stuff? Like, how did you get started?
For me, I started printing in high school. I was actually, like a lot of t-shirt printers, I think, I bootlegged a bunch of band shirts. The band shirts that I bootlegged were, believe it or not, customers now. Dropkick Murphys, Mighty Mighty Bosstones, and Big D and the Kids Stable were the bands that I bootlegged shirts for. One of the members of Big D saw the sweatshirt that I made and asked me if I could make him one. And that snowballed into...
And that was a bootleg? And he was like, I want one of those?
Exactly. They're young college kids. They're friends of mine to this day, but they took a liking to me, and I immediately started selling their t-shirts. I printed them. They had a record label in the city at the time, so my customer base started growing around the city of Boston, printing shirts and patches and buttons like you did, and all that kind of stuff for bands locally. Big D took me on the road. We went on tour to California 3 or 4 times. They took me to Europe, all that kind of stuff, just being the merch guy. I stopped doing that when my wife graduated from college because I didn't go to college. I did, but I stopped going very quick. I went to community college for a couple
Yeah,
months, and
I did the exact same thing.
I breezed through the entire program in 2 months. And I
I
was
did
like,
it long enough to get financial aid. The best part about financial aid is like I was in a band at the time and I got that like I don't know what it was, like $800 check to like buy your books with. I didn't
yeah,
buy a single fucking book. Immediately took that check and went to like a music store and bought a fucking bass for the
yeah,
band.
yep.
And then I dropped out of fucking college like a month later.
Yep, I went to it was a graphic design program at a
That's
local community
exactly what I
college.
did.
I'm not knocking on it. Everything they were teaching I already known in high school, and
Yeah.
I basically I wasn't interested in painting or
Yeah.
drawing a nude model and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I stopped going to school, and I got a full-time job at a local mom and pop t-shirt company, and I worked there for about 5 years. I would take a couple weeks off to go on the road with Big D every now and then. My wife graduated college. We started living together, still working that t-shirt shop. I printed shirts. I ran embroidery. I was their head graphic designer for a while, customer service, everything. And I got a phone call from the tour manager for the Dropkick Murphys one day, and he said, "I need a merch guy to help me at St. Patrick's Day. Can you help me do that?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." Basically jumped out of work on Friday, drove into the city. I sold shirts for the Dropkick Murphys, and I really impressed them and their manager. They gave me a couple tester shows after that. I did the 10th anniversary of the Warped Tour at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. I rented a box truck, drove to New Hampshire, picked up all the products, set up the tent, vended for 2 days, made a bank deposit afterwards. And she called me and she said, "I need you to be the full-time merch guy for us." And I said, why would I do that? I got health care. I got a job. My wife was going
Right.
to be happy, all this. And she goes, "I'll make you an offer you can't refuse." And just financially, she plucked me out of the screen printing job. I was making more money than I ever made in my life. So I quit working for the t-shirt company and I hit the road with the Murphys. Toured with the Dropkick Murphys for 9 years, running 100% of their merch operation.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what is that like? Like, what is an at like? How do you logistically do a lot of that stuff?
Well, for me, I was fortunate where I was getting paid a retainer. She didn't want to. When with bands that are on the road full time, a lot of them crew comes and goes. If you're on the road with one band for March and you don't have a gig in April because your band isn't touring, then you find another gig. And it's, up to you or that band to decide if they want you back, or you just keep your schedule full. So Diane, who used to manage the Dropkick Murphys, she really liked me and we hit it off. And she basically offered me a retainer to not take another gig. I don't want you to go back to the t-shirt company. I don't want you to go on the road with anybody else. I want you to be available 365 days for whatever we have to do. And in order to make the retainer worth the time off, the Dropkick Murphys used to tour in a very bizarre touring schedule where they would tour for 2 weeks and then take 3 weeks off. And then they tour for another 2 weeks and then they take a month off. And then they tour for 3 weeks and then they take 2 weeks off. It was real. We went to Europe probably 4 or 5 times a year. They didn't go to Europe for 6 or 8 weeks like a lot of other bands do.
Yeah, just do it once.
And do the whole, just do it once for like 2 months. They would go over and just do the UK. And then we'd come home for 3 weeks, and then we'd go back and we would just do Scandinavia, and then we'd come back home.
That's
And then
crazy.
the next well, it's more or less because the guys in the band didn't want to be over there. They wanted touring to be short, so that's what they did. And in between all those tours, I was designing new merch. I was working with the merch company at the time, inventory levels, getting rid of old stock, creating sales, doing mock-ups, just everything involved with running a merch company, working with that company up in New Hampshire. And I hit it off with those people. And now all these years later, they're one of my biggest customers, just all the
Right.
way back to those early days of working together, developing the
It's the
Dropkick
connections.
Murphys.
Yeah.
Yeah, the product line and all that. So once my 9 years on the road kind of fizzled out, I was really burnt out. I was not a very friendly, likable t-shirt guy by any stretch of the word. Drunk people can really get on your nerves, the beer farts, all that stuff. I was really burnt out. So I decided to retire from the road. And at the same time, my wife and I were having twins. So it just made sense to stop touring. And my
Yeah.
only choice was find some stupid job, I mean, I don't want to say a stupid job, but just a mundane job. I could have went back to the mom and pop t-shirt company I worked for before. They're another one of our customers at this point. And I just decided I've always wanted to start my own screen printing business. Now's the best time to do it.
Yeah,
So
you've already been doing most of it. Like, why not?
exactly. We have the know-how. The only thing I didn't have, to be honest, was the customers. I had most of the bands, a band, Flatliners from Toronto. I've known those guys since they were teenagers. I'm talking 14-year-old kids, and I printed their merch in the United States before anybody else did. But I just let all that stuff go. I hit the road. I didn't care, so I lost all the bands that we had printed for to other merch companies and other
Right,
situations and the whole bit. So by the time I circled back and started my own thing, I didn't have any customers. I didn't
right,
necessarily want to start a merch company either, because I know what goes into it: the mail order, the fulfillment, the customer service, advances, all this stuff that I want nothing to do with it. That's when the merch company up in New Hampshire, they're called Forward Merch now. They used to do the Dropkick Murphy stuff. They called me and wait a minute, you set up a shop? I said, yeah. They're like, can I send you 5 jobs? We need help. Sure. Then they sent us 5 jobs, and we did them in a couple of days, and we shipped them out. And that's how our business took off. And basically, contract printing and specializing in tour merch. I have
hmm
years of experience on the road getting shirts out to a tour, and what it takes to get it there, and how it's supposed to be packed and labeled, and just trying to make it as seamless as possible for the guy on the road who has to sell
yeah.
it. Guy or girl.
I feel like that's a huge advantage that you have, is knowing the other side of it. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like, you know what they want before they even have to ask.
exactly. I don't like to say that I don't believe that our shop is the best print shop in the world. I don't believe that we're the worst either. One thing that sets us apart that I have said, I even told this with M&R when I did a podcast with M&R a couple weeks ago, is that experience on the road really does separate us. And it's maintained, for example, Kings Road merch. It's a seamless relationship for them. Almost every other one of their bands, whether it's Rise Against or Rancid or this one or that one, doesn't matter who, they have to go through an approval process for that band, where the company
Right.
sets up the shirt, gets the first print, sticks it on the wall, they send it to the manager, the manager's going to text it to the band guy. What if he's in the pool right now? Who know, and just wait around waiting for these people to approve their shirt. And in the print business, that is huge money. You got presses spinning, you got heaters heating, people standing around, especially with the Dropkick Murphys, that is such an important band to Kings Road. It's seamless. I can set up a Dropkick Murphys print, decide if the color green needs to change, understand that they might have whoever designed the artwork maybe got the Irish flag backwards, which is actually an Ivory Coast flag, and just make those changes right there on site on press, because I still
You
work with
knew.
the band. I know what
Yeah.
they need. I can make those decisions, and it's a gigantic weight off their shoulders, knowing that it's going to get done right. It's going to get done right to Ken's specs. It's going to get done with the liking of the fan base in mind, the whole bit, because I have all that experience. So it works out really well for us, and we're grateful that we're able to do that.
I guess, like, when we first started, we did a ton of bands and stuff. I mean, I was nowhere near as like into it as you are. But I feel like one of the biggest things that we ran into when we were a smaller shop was all these bands that were on tour, like Warped Tour and all these other things. They wanted everything fronted, and they wanted to pay for it when tour was over.
Yep.
Like, how do you manage that?
I don't have to, because I'm printing for merch companies. They have to manage that.
So are they paying you first?
I mean, my big customers I'm on terms with, like most of the merch companies need 30 days, but they pay me in 30 days. You know,
Right.
Jeff, the owner of Ford Merch, he once gave me a very valuable lesson years and years ago, where he told me 2 things that I've remembered to this day. First one that I remember to this day is that a phone call is as good as a check sometimes. And that's kind of a horrifying thing to hear and, accept, especially when you're a small business. If you turn the clock back 8 years ago and I had a band that owed me money for 3 weeks and I'm not getting paid and I desperately need a thing, and you're getting freaked out and you're frustrated, you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then you get a phone call when you're expecting a check, and he couldn't have been more right. The phone call was as good as the check. You're like, oh my God. So that was a helpful thing. The other thing that I learned, and this kind of steered our business, is he got to the point where he was just sick and tired of paying for transmissions and stolen trailers and stolen vans and every other awful thing that happens to a band on the road. And I get it because I've been there and I have friends that are in those situations and I have customers that are in those situations, but it's always the merch company that will get that phone call. Our trailer was just stolen. Everything's gone. The entire month's worth of merch, the whole bit. The only way we're going to survive is if we can get another 500 shirts tomorrow. You're like, and then what are you supposed to do? You know, your
Right.
conscience tells you that you got to print this stuff and you got to help them out, but your brain is going, no, like, how are they going to get to the show tomorrow? They're going to have to go rent a van or buy a van or this or that. And suddenly you're the only source of new revenue, but you're the last one who's going to get paid. And that got me in the mindset of, I don't want to be a merch company. And that's where we got our relationship where we are a printer, not a merch company.
For the merch company, right.
There's so many merch companies out there. Very few of them have their own print facility. The biggest merch companies out there do not own a single machine. They don't own a single press. And they have a network of printers like us all around the country, strategically located to get the job printed in the closest place possible.
Right.
And, you know, it's a great situation to be in that regard. The worst situation that you could possibly be in for us is the prices are all dictated. They tell you how much they're paying. They don't say how much is it going to cost me. They say it's worth this amount.
Yeah,
and that's the
rough
toughest
too.
part of it. It's very rough. And with COVID, circling back to that for a second, that's where it's been the most eye-opening thing for us of how we move forward from there. Because for years, we've been working with most of our customers telling us how much the job is worth. And I've been able to sit back and crunch the numbers and do the math and realize that we're not making any money and we haven't been making any money and we got to move forward differently. And I can tell you that a two months into not being a single tour happening, that I feel like we're probably more financially stable than we were when we had 10 tours in the building at the moment, because everything we're doing isn't pennies on the dollar. We're doing, you know, legitimate, this is how much we need to get the job done kind of pricing with, you know, local business, whether it's landscapers or contractors or restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And they're paying more. Yeah, I'm getting more money for 200 shirts than I got for 2,000 shirts.
Yeah, that's where we're at. So basically we did the band thing for like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years or whatever. And we got sick of, we weren't going to merch companies. We were going directly to the band. So we would deal with a band like, I don't want to name any names because some of them will fuck us. But basically they would be like, hey, like, you know, here's some money. We have like $1,000 or something.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, I need $10,000 for the merch.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, we'll pay you when tour's over. And, you know, you're like, again, you're like, I don't want to screw these guys. I like this band, you know, whatever. You end up printing all this stuff. And then when tour's over, it's like, who do you get a hold of? It's like, oh, Tim said he was going to pay you. And then you call Tim and Tim's like, oh, Adam was going to pay you. Yeah. And then you never fucking get the money. And then they're
split it up already.
Yeah.
Give you the runaround.
Yeah, exactly. And then you finally get some money. They're like, all right, well, we didn't have all of it. We have 6,000.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, give me that. And then by that time, they got another tour going, and they're like, all right, well, we scrounged together another 2,000. So they still haven't paid their full bill from the first one.
Yeah.
And then they want to do it all over again.
Yep.
And then you're like, well, they're in the whole 2,000. And they're like, oh, we'll pay the rest next time. And eventually it just gets to the point where they owe you like $20,000 or some shit.
And that's awful. And to be honest with you, I've been very picky choosy about bands that we work with directly.
Yeah.
I need somebody to vouch for that band. They need like a band off the street that comes in. They don't have any terms. They don't have any credit. I have merch companies that we print for that are terrible about their bills. You basically a couple of them, you know, like you said, you're not going to name names, but I got a guy who owed me money for like 4 months, finally paid the bill, and it was followed up with a new order 30 seconds after he finally paid the bill. And I'm not going to operate like that anymore. I can't. My overhead's too big. I'm in a very expensive state and a very expensive area to work out of, and I can't compete with, say, like Kiwi in Ohio. Kiwi is a major contract printer in the touring world, and they can do shirts at, 30 cents a shirt. I need,
because their overhead's a lot lower.
Yeah, it's just, they might run 24 hours a day. Obviously the minimum wage is probably $10 different. Like all that kind of stuff goes into it. And for us, we really need somebody to vouch for us. The latest, newest band that we got, and they're not a new band by any means. They've been around since probably 1982 or something. I don't really remember off the top of my head. They were recommended to us from Kings Road. Kings Road was basically said to them, we're not doing your mail order. All we did was facilitate your tour. These guys printed it anyway. Why don't you just go to them directly? And it was a matter, it's not that Kings Road didn't want the band, but Kings Road didn't really want, I'm just waving at my thing so that it doesn't go black again. Kings Road it wasn't necessarily that they didn't want the band. It didn't make any sense. It didn't make sense for them. Didn't make sense for the band, because somebody like Kings Road is just marking that up a little bit. So they can come directly here and get that money, take it down a little bit and order directly from us. They were actually our first cancel with COVID. They were supposed to start a tour in San Diego the last week of February. I have a pallet of merch still sitting out back right now. Right now, we're chipping away at it. It's a huge bill, 5 figures worth of stuff. I know that they've already rescheduled the dates. I do not believe at all that the dates are going to happen as they plan.
Yeah.
Most of the dated stock has been sold, which is great. I had another one of my customers who does mail order fulfillment set up a store for them, and they've made I think I've almost got what we spent on blank shirts back at this point. And I went back to the band and I said, look, I'm almost covered on what I spent on the blanks. I'm sure you have other bills that are happening right now. As soon as I get covered on the blanks, then you take the rest of the mail order payments moving forward, get caught up on your other stuff. And then when you hit the road, when these things are rescheduled, you can buy all the rest of it off of me. And they're excited about that. And that's that working relationship you have to have.
Yeah.
I'm happy because I'm not out of pocket any physical money. I have a pallet of black t-shirts that I bought. It's almost paid off. It took a couple months to get there, but that's what you have to do. And there's a lot of bands and a lot of merch companies and a lot of printers that are in a hell of a lot worse situation than we got into with this.
Yeah,
because
sure.
we only had one major, bugaboo, whatever you want to call it. And the other major setback with merch for us was the Dropkick Murphys. We didn't own any of that. Kings Road owned that merch. So Kings Road, we packed it all up, palletized it, shipped it out to them. And luckily with that quick rip together St. Patrick's Day broadcast, they sold it all anyway. So, there's some people that got lucky and some people that didn't. I consider that we got lucky.
Yeah. The thing that pissed us off about the whole thing with like bands is not necessarily the money. Like, yeah, it sucks when you're a small company and you're like relying on that money. Like, you don't have like a ton of money in the bank to be like, I can front like, $80,000 worth of merch to all these bands.
Nope.
You make it work and whatever. But to us, it was like a group of like 4 dudes printing merch for bands that we liked.
Mm-hmm.
And we were stoked on it. We were doing all these things for all these bands because we were like, we liked the bands. And the thing is, we would work late. We would work weekends. We would drive the shit to a show that they had like 3 hours away.
Yep.
Like all these things because we were trying to build a relationship with them. And we found out the hard way after all these years that like, yeah, to a degree, they like you because you're fucking giving them a product that they need to survive. But the instant they come across another merch shop that's willing to do it for like 10 cents cheaper, they're like, well, fuck you guys. Like, we're going to this place. Or this place is going to front everything.
I lost an account at one point, I was in between touring with the Murphys. I mean, I was managing some bands while working with the Murphys. I managed Big D for a little while. I managed this folk band called Larry and His Flask towards my end of the touring days, past into the early days of Acme. And my business partner, so to speak, he had a band. We both managed them under the same phony company that we had. And I didn't get that band's print account, even though Acme was a brand new screen printing business. We're both managing bands who both need merch. I was printing all the Larry and His Flask stuff. The other guy was ordering his merch from somebody else. I'm like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Why can't I print their merch? And he's like, oh, we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. And then bam, the tour is underway. And I go, where did you get the merch? And he goes, oh, we got it from these people in Florida. Why? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I thought we were on the same page and we were trying to grow a management company at the same time I'm trying to grow a screen printing business. And I couldn't believe he told me this. I didn't get the merch because the guy in Orlando offered that they could sleep on the floor. That's it? I would have bought him a hotel room. Like, what are you talking about? It didn't make any sense to me. Not to mention the tour's coming from the south to the north, so they would have been in Boston in a week. I would have not only would I have got them a hotel room in Florida, I would have got them one in Boston too. I would, with the newborn twins and everything, I wasn't in a position to offer them my floor. But
Yeah.
like, are you kidding me? I didn't get the merch account because this guy offered them a floor to sleep on. I was
Yeah.
shocked that
Well,
my
that was the
own buddy.
thing. That's what I said. That's the thing that with bands that pisses me off so much is it's just like like I said, you build buddy relationships with them, and then like I said, they're so money hungry on the road that they're willing to do like dumb decisions to just like get to the next thing.
There's also a lot of inner turmoil. What I've learned through managing bands, and I've toured in a van, 12 dudes in a 15-passenger van in a trailer, all the way through to, with the Murphys, we had 3 buses with minimal dudes on each bus, and like tractor trailers and the whole bit. I've done it. I've been to all over the world. A band needs a leader. Most bands don't have a clear-cut leader who makes the decisions, and the other guys just follow suit behind him and just, he's got the idea, I'm just going to go. Most bands basically, from what I gather, self-implode because they start getting to a point where they're arguing about money. They're arguing my idea is better than yours, or we did your idea last, now it's time to do mine. All those kind of things. And merch companies and t-shirt printers greatly get affected by that, big time, because of the inner turmoil and the inner struggle that happens in the bands, that money gets spent where it's not supposed to. And like you say, the merch company is going to get burned. This band decided to buy new risers instead of paying their merch bill because the band that played in front of them on a 4-band package had risers and they didn't. They look stupid. And you're like, what? But that's the thinking that takes place in the van. And I've
Yeah.
seen it. I've lived it. I know it.
Yeah.
That's what happens out there. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens a lot.
I mean, we still do bands, but we don't do it like we used to. Like we basically used to do like almost only bands. And then it got to the point where we started like here and there getting like good corporate accounts.
Yep.
Like, come friends with somebody who knows somebody who works at this place or whatever. And
Yeah.
then we slowly started to realize like, fuck, like these companies we're printing shit for, like they have a budget and they have the money now.
Yeah.
And they have perfect artwork. Everything's Pantoned.
Mm-hmm.
It's not contract work. It's like direct to customer. Like they're like, hey, I need 200 of this, 200 of this, 200 of this. What's your turnaround time? And you're like, okay, it's 10 to 15 business days. They're like, all right, cool. 2 emails deep. This is what I want. Send me an invoice, and then they fucking pay the thing up front, and then we print it and ship it out. Like that's literally, we fizzled out of the band stuff. We, like I said, we still do a bunch of them, but like, most of what we do is that where it's like a company that's well-established company. They're like, this is what I need. Pay the bill. Done.
Yeah.
99.9% of what we do is paid for up front.
That's great.
Like, but that's the thing, like cash flow wise, that I've learned like over the years is like, I get an order in today. So say I got like 30 orders in today, everybody pays whatever. At the end of the day, like 3-4 o'clock, I order all of those orders. I don't do terms. I don't do anything. I pay with a card right then and there. I pay for everything.
Yeah.
So at the end of that day, all the money I have left over is basically the company money, like profit. Like there's I don't owe anybody anything. Shirts are on their way. Ink's already here. Screens are burned.
Yep.
Like that's our money. So like once I got into that model, it was like, holy fuck. Like I cannot believe we were doing it back in the garage with like we were a small company and we had more out to bands than we actually had as a company, like in a bank account.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And it's just like, dude, fuck that. Like, that's why when you're telling me now that like you're dealing with a merch company, you're not dealing with bands. It seemed like to me, that's just like a thing in my head. I was like, why the fuck didn't we do that?
and
like,
to be honest with you, we're heading now. A lot of it has to do with current times where we're at with COVID and all that, where bands are on the road and whatnot. It's been a blessing for us. Going back last summer, we got 3 solid new customers that were basically print brokers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of print brokers in this area who have the corporate accounts like you're talking about. I don't have a sales force. I don't have anybody out pounding the pavement trying to get an account or jobs or anything like that. These print brokers are. It's their livelihood. They don't care if you need pens, t-shirts, buttons, stress balls. It doesn't matter. They need a t-shirt printer. They started coming to us, and the reason they started coming to us was word of mouth. And the same day that we got 2 print brokers in the door, about 4 hours apart, I also got a phone call about a woman who's trying to rent a saxophone for her kid. And I went, that's it. We have to change the company name. So when we started the business as Acme Band Supply, the focus of the company was not necessarily a screen printer, not a merch company, and we also did not want to step on any of the other screen printers around. Most importantly, the one that I used to work at. They're established. They have all the local businesses, the restaurants, the schools, the sports teams, the leagues, all that stuff. We didn't want to do any of that. We were also next door to another screen printer. He was 30 feet away, and we took the space that this guy used to have when he outgrew it to start. He was bullshit mad. And I said, don't worry, we're not going to be a screen printing company. I'll come up with a company name that has nothing to do with screen printing. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. And that's what we did. So going back to last summer, I said, we have to rebrand the company name. We rebranded it as Acme Print Company. And that has paid a huge amount of dividends now in current time.
Yeah.
Because the band thing is out. Musicians are out. Touring is gone. Nightclubs and bars are closed. Nobody's getting together. E-commerce is still there. But for us, it circles right back to we're a print company. So that's what we properly named ourselves, as a print company.
Mm-hmm.
And we are getting not only are the print brokers coming in, but we also are looking at ourselves as an opportunity for all the small, we're surrounded by manual print shops around here. We have the biggest, not only warehouse space, production space, and we have the biggest M&R press in New England right now. And when we installed the thing, it was like show and tell. I mean, there's definitely some bigger rock machines up in New Hampshire and whatnot, but in Massachusetts and southeast of Boston, the biggest shops have all gone under. They've all closed down, and they're gone, and we're basically kind of following in their footsteps. The only thing that I believe that we're doing differently is we're not accepting jobs that force these other companies out of business. Doing 20,000 towels for the Boston Bruins, in 24-hour kind of thing, for 10 cents a towel.
I have no desire to do anything like that.
We did one of those. We did 80,000 towels for the Patriots in January. We lost our ass doing it. I never actually agreed that we do it. I was nervous that we were going to pull it off, and the number was never 80,000. And what ended up happening was we barely pulled it off. I ended up having to pull Ford Merch in New Hampshire into the job. Luckily, they were able to pull off 20,000 towels for me when we got 50,000. I'm sorry, we got 60,000 done. Was it 70 or 80? Doesn't matter. Huge amount of towels. They did,
lots of towels.
We did about 3/4 of it. They did, they did a couple, 10, 20,000 of them for us, and we pulled it all off. And then by the time I was actually able to sit down and do the math, I mean, we lost our ass doing it. And I went all the way to the people that brokered the job to us. They're out of Tennessee, and I flew all the way to Tennessee in February to have a meeting with these people and just say, hey, I know that all the other printers, not only the people that you used to work with, but the people that the Bruins and the Celtics and the Patriots and the Red Sox went directly to, have all gone out of business, full on bankrupt, with a trail of destruction and money owed in their wake. I said, I don't understand why you guys can print a job like this here in Tennessee for, say, 20 cents a towel, and then spend $6,000 to get it on an airplane and up to Boston overnight, but you can't give me the $6,000 that I fell short to get it done locally on time. It doesn't make any sense. And they said, nope, these are negotiated, these are contracted prices, and our people and their people, and blah, 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 there's no room. And I said, well, if a billionaire owner like Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots and Gillette Stadium can't afford another 30 cents for giveaway towel that JetBlue paid for, another public billion, we're out. Just don't send it to me anymore, because I'm not going to go. Like, the writing is on the wall. I've seen the other 5 companies that used to do this, and they're all out of money and bankrupt and gone. And they owed the same people that we buy our inks from tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm not going to follow suit. So
that's my thing is I just have no desire to play that game. Like, I feel like it's always it's always in a negotiation. It's like, how can I get the cheapest possible fucking product from you? And
that's what they do.
I cannot do that, dude. I don't have that in me. Like, I'm not that guy either that like goes to like an antique store and fucking haggles. I'm that guy
Neither am
who
I.
walks in, I see something and it's marked $30.
Mhm.
I look at the little old lady who's trying to sell it and I'm like, she thinks that's worth $30. I'm going to pay her $30 for that because that's what it is.
I'm the same way.
I'm not going to go in there and be like, I'll give you $26.50.
Yep.
It's like, dude, fuck that. Just like pay what it's fucking, what they think it's worth. It's that thing where like everybody who comes to a print shop thinks they should haggle or be like, well, what's the best price with this? It's like, you don't walk into McDonald's and there's a fucking Happy Meal or like a dollar menu and you're like, I'll give you 78 cents for that cheeseburger.
It's
They're
like Borat. We'll call it 85. Spits in his hand and
yeah.
reaches.
Well, it's like, dude, it's a fucking dollar. Like,
Yeah.
that's the price. That's what it's worth. That's what we're selling it for. And people have the audacity to be like, hey, how can I get that cheaper? And especially in our industry, it's funny because it's like, you can go to a Walmart and buy something for the exact price they have it on the shelf. No questions asked, whatever. Like that thing was mass produced somewhere, whatever.
Yeah.
You're coming to a custom shop who's going to make your design, set it up, walk you through the ink colors, walk you through the different like ways we can print it and make it cool for you.
Yeah.
We're custom making something for you.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, someone Ben down the road will do it in his mom's basement for fucking 5 cents cheaper. Exactly what I say every time. I'm like, well, go to Ben, and when you put the shirt on and all the ink falls off, or it fucking feels like sandpaper or a bulletproof shield, when you come back to me and say, hey, Ben sucks, I want to get it through you, I'm gonna be like, okay, here's my price. Like,
yeah,
this is what it is in the first place. Like,
and in the business, it's really no different with the classifieds. Like, I love to flip stuff that we've outgrown and we don't need anymore. I legitimately believe that everything I flip, whether it's on Digitsmith or Craigslist locally or the Facebook groups, or it doesn't matter, everything I put up is at what I believe is a fair price.
right.
Before I put something up, I find out what it costs new. I include what it would cost to ship it and crate it and all that kind of stuff. And then, okay, you come up with an even number in the middle, and it doesn't stop people from lowballing. And for example, I had a Ryanette manual jacket clamp. This thing was unclassified for probably 3 years. It was something like a $400 clamp, brand new.
Dude, I have the exact same one.
Right?
I've never fucking used it.
That's what I'm saying. So the thing
I bought it brand new, still sitting on the shelf. I got it because I was like, I might use it for this job. Never used it for the job.
I specifically needed it. We did the Mighty Mighty Bosstones wanted us to do a 6-color plaid print on the back of suit jackets, and they wanted to sell them. So I drove around and went to every single thrift store I could find to find black suit jackets off the rack, and then we printed the logo on the back. And we sold at the merch table. Fans loved it. I mean, that's right up a Bosstones fans' alley. I can get a plaid jacket just like what they're wearing on stage. It was great. So I bought the clamp. I printed 100 jackets with the thing, and that's it. And then we never used it again, mostly because we ended up getting an M&R machine. We got a Chameleon finally. Shortly after I bought that jacket clamp, we got rid of our Hopkins machines, and we couldn't even put it on the M&R. So like, I don't need this. So I put it up, and I want to say I put it up at $300. So it's $400 brand new. I put it up at $300, assuming I'll probably get like $250 for it. That didn't stop me getting probably about 20 offers over 10 years that were, I'll give you 100. No thanks. Well, the thing costs 400 new. I might as well buy it new. Go right ahead.
Go buy it new. Yeah.
Go buy it new. I'm offering you 25% off a new, which if you were at, say Kohl's and Levi's are 25% off, you'd probably buy a pair. You know, like 25% off is not anything to really sneeze at. It's a decent number, but it took 2 years, and then finally somebody offered me $250. I said, yeah, I'll take $250. That's not an outrageous ask, but that's what people think. It's unfortunate that in screen printing, when you're starting out, everything seems incredibly expensive, and the value isn't there. And then you start getting customers, and you're getting it right back from the customers that they don't see the value in. Well, I just paid my guy 5 hours to completely hand draw your tuna for the back of your shirt on the computer. That there's a price tag attached to that. Well, I don't understand why he took 5 hours, because he had to redraw a tuna fish. Like that's going to cost you a couple $100. And unfortunately, that just carries no value in our business, and people don't want to pay those expenses. The one thing that I'm never good at is making a quick ad for something, or an Instagram picture that has some text on it, something that looks good. My creative mind is gone. It evaporated probably about 7 years ago. So I sit down and I want to be creative like I used to be, but I just don't have the mental capacity for it anymore. So it's easier for me to call him and say, I need something advertising this, give me something cool. And we're this close to me putting him on retainer and just, what do you want? I don't need a lot. I need maybe an hour a month. What's that going to cost me to do? And we ended up not doing it just because of COVID. And all these months later, I still don't have my website up. He's been working on it for God knows how long. But this is the relationship I have with him. I've known this guy for years. I know how long it takes him to do stuff. And I haven't been trying to get it done either at the same time. There was other problems to deal with, and especially with the last couple of months we've had just being over capacity, it's been the furthest thing from my mind. I don't need a website up. If we got 4 more customers because of the website, I wouldn't have been able to print their shirts anyway last month. So
you would have pissed 4 other people off because
exactly that's typically what happens to it. We're not proud of it. The guys out back, they're printing skateboards right now. I don't even know if they're done yet. This poor guy, he asked us if we could print these skateboards for him probably 5 weeks ago. They're sitting on the floor in front of my desk here right up until about 7 o'clock tonight when we started them. And I felt terrible. I'm sorry. Skateboarding is printing skate decks. We have a whole different apparatus. There's a drying process. We got to spray paint them with a clear coat afterwards to seal it in. We're not professional skateboard printers. We'll put a print on a skateboard for you. It's going to look pretty good, but this isn't something that I can just crank out in 2 hours during the day. You need a whole separate thing. The same thing happened to us on Thursday night last week. One of our biggest customers I'll call them a lifestyle brand. They're a surf shop. They're a skate shop. They're a music venue now, a taco bar. They have a music festival, the whole bit. And they asked us to print posters for them that were on 1/2-inch thick birch plywood. And I said, well, when they asked if we could print on wood, I said, yeah, we can print on wood. And then we got a Lowe's right, 3 minutes away. I went over to Lowe's and I got some plywood. I just got the 1/8 inch stuff. Did a bunch of sampling on it. The ink looked fine. It looked great. I knew how I was going to layer. Let's do this. Come on in, check out the samples that I did. You just throwing ink on wood. And this is amazing. Awesome. I'm going to go get the wood. We'll cut it up. We'll bring it back tomorrow morning. Shows up the next morning and it's 1/2-inch thick. Oh, what the hell is the wood so thick for? And well, why wouldn't it be so thick? And I don't know if I can print this. Like, when we print posters and whatnot, we have a vacuum board that we use on our Chameleon. We retrofitted the vacuum board to work with a Chameleon, and the thickness of the vacuum board is huge. A regular M&R pallet has only got 3/8 of an inch at best clearance.
So your off contact is going to be jacked.
Yeah. So, I mean, you jack the off contact way up, and the thickness of the vacuum board plus the 1/2-inch wood, M&R is not giving you 2.5 inches of clearance. So we had to come up with a plan B, and we came up with a plan B, and the plan B wasn't good enough because our 3 points of contact were off. So they're all slightly crooked. And then I ended up ripping them all down to get it so that the margin was equal on all 4 sides. And it was, if we had time,
it's a pain in the ass,
if we knew we could do it, we'd get it done. We got it done, and they sold them and they look fantastic, but adventures that come through with this guy with the skateboards. Yes, we printed skateboards before. Yes, we've used this equipment before, but since the last time we used that equipment, we stopped using static mesh. We use Sherlock endurance panels now. Every single one of our screen frames is as tight as you could possibly get. There's no give on the mesh to get around the curvature of a skateboard. Problems that didn't exist the last time we did this stuff. We updated our t-shirt printing and got incredible screens and incredible mesh, tight as hell. It doesn't work on a skateboard anymore. So now tomorrow I'm actually going to call the people that we used to get static frames from and say, any chance you could send us 2 screens that are at maybe 10 newtons?
Can you send me a super loose 230?
Yeah, like I need a 230 mesh at like 10 newtons, and it's just to see what they say. And they'd be like, oh, we print for a skateboard company in Brooklyn that uses those every day, or that kind of thing. They might have it ready to go, but these are the problems that why this guy's order has been sitting on the floor for months is because we didn't know how to tackle it. And just
exactly.
Sorry.
No, we have the same problem. The funny thing is we we're still using static frames, but we're actually about to switch over to the hydro frames, or the hydro mesh or whatever. But the thing is I had ordered a couple dozen. Like, I try to order like a couple dozen screens at a time. What I was trying to do originally was order for every other 5 of white we buy, I'll order like 6 screens.
Now, the
So
hydro mesh is still static glued on?
yeah, it's
Okay.
still a static frame. It's just like thin thread,
Yeah.
and it's
The,
got
the,
like all the bells and whistles to it.
well, I mean, we've got the demo with the hydro mesh and all that as well. Or the Saudi, the S mesh
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you're still getting
Typically,
kind of the same thing on the Sherlocks, right? It's just a different way to stretch them.
Sherlock is using. I've asked them. I have a very good relationship with Sherlock. I'm not an influencer or anything. Let me see if I can find that email while I'm on screen with you right now. Because I asked him if they were making the panels that we need out of S mesh, or anything like that, and I can't remember what he said. Looking it up right now.
Well, I've always ordered screens from just like my supply house. Like, we have a
Yeah,
supply house that's somewhat near us, like an hour or two away. They send us shit. I'm usually just like, hey, I need 2 dozen 230 2331s. And they're like,
yeah,
okay, cool, we'll send them to you. But like, I've got buddies that, have print shops. We always talk and like compare notes and shit. And they're like, hey, I just ordered, a ton of these hydro mesh screens. It's got like fucking the bead of caulk on the inside all the way around, so you can't get ink into the frame. And then we get the block out, so you don't need tape and like all this shit. I'm like, dude, like, all right, like, I'll try it out. So I'm getting more into that now, where I'm probably going to replacing all my screens with that stuff. But like, the
yeah.
the biggest downside I've heard from people with the S mesh is that it's super sensitive. Like, you pop screens all the time, whatever, and they're like, yeah, you will pop screens because you're going from regular statics to these that are more sensitive. But once you are using nothing but the other, you're going to stop popping them because you know how to handle them, you know how to use them. Like, if
Exactly.
you're just grabbing a regular fucking 110 or 230 or something, you could bang that shit around, you throw it in there, you can print over fucking buttons and all that sort of stuff.
Everything.
But you're right.
Now,
But if you're getting a different higher end panel and you're printing with it, it's like, okay, now we need to take a couple extra steps to like
I
protect the panel.
what Chris and my business partner, Chris, he never does these podcast things with me. And a lot of times I wish he would, because he's the print guy. All the amazing prints we do are him. And if I turn the clock back about 3 years, we were getting a lot of trouble with print drag and ghosting and just not having any idea what the tension was like on
Yeah,
these
just bad
static
tension.
frames that we had. And
Yeah.
we didn't know it, and we're fighting and struggling, and we don't know what the heck's going on. So we got on the plane and we went all the way to Long Beach to see everything there was to offer. And we came out of Long Beach going, Sherlock panel is 100% the way to go. And we did that. So we came back from Long Beach, and I immediately called them and I said, I think I ordered maybe 50 or 100 screens at the time. I mean, huge money.
Yeah,
They're
they're like what, like $60 for the screen originally, or
keep
more than
going.
that.
Oh yeah, our 25 by 36s that we have with like a 300 mesh panel is probably about $120.
Yeah, but you never have to. You can just keep using them over and over and over again.
They're indestructible. There's
Yeah.
a reason that they're called endurance. And what I was going to explain is that the first we bought about 100 screens from um, directly from Sherlock, and what we bought were the endurance panels. I'll get into endurance panels in a second, because at the same time that we ordered those screens from Sherlock, one of the equipment reflippers in New
Hmm.
Jersey, his name's Tony. We've had a relationship with Tony for a long time, and he's as straight a shooter as you could get in the equipment business down there. He liquidated a shop who had 300 Sherlock frames.
That's awesome.
And he goes, do you want them? I went, yup. So he palletized about 150 and he shipped them up. Now the difference is the ones that we got from Tony were the classic panel. And I can't remember what the heck Ryanette is calling those things right now. Eco Frames or something. They've been
Yeah.
around a long time. It's got this big like
The bar.
T-shaped bar thing that you're
Yeah.
gonna hold one side down and then you pull in the
Dude,
other
they look
thing.
so fucking sketchy.
Oh my God. Like we had a demo done in here and I went, absolutely not. And then of course you start peeling back the onion like we always do. And we went to our distributor who's been selling screen printing products since 1984 and said, what do you know about these Eco Frames? They weren't called Eco Frames. They were called Trax, Trax. So do you know about the Trax? And he told me all about it. He went up and down. They flipped 5 shops when they first came out in the mid 90s. We ended up losing $50,000 on them because we had to we had to refund everybody, and the mesh isn't straight inside the plastic that they sew on it, and they tear and this and that. And we said, okay, we're never getting the Trax things. Sherlock one-upped all that, and their stretching equipment is a hell of a lot more safer than having this big wrench thing. That didn't stop, the new people from coming in, giving it a new name, and basically trying to sell it like it's this brand new thing that hasn't existed, that people have struggled with forever. Whereas Sherlock went on their own and got it right. So
Sherlock has like a table, right, with like a channel,
a couple of different
slide
things.
it under.
Yes, one of these days I keep saying that I'm going to make a video and I'm going to show people how we do how our screen room operates, because it's really amazing. It's expensive, and I think everything in screen printing is expensive, but this operation is great. So what I was getting at is, with the original Sherlock panels, it's really no different than the Trax. The only difference between the Trax or the Eco Frame is that on the Trax / Eco Frame, the plastic strip that slides into the they call them tension bars is sewn in. What Sherlock did is, instead of sewing in that plastic strip, they welded it to the mesh. The plastic bar that holds the mesh into the frame panel is welded into the mesh. The problem was that as the mesh curls over the aluminum parts of the screen, if there's any kind of ding in the aluminum, it rips the screen almost instantly. Like you were saying about how fragile they were, we experienced that in the first 2 days of owning these screens, that they were ripping them constantly. They're under such high pressure, and we're used to the old static frames that you could literally use like a
fucking
baseball
throw
bat
it across the shop.
Yeah, and they're fine, and they don't rip or anything because there's no tension on them. So suddenly we get these brand new screens, and they're expensive panels and all this crap. We realized that we had brand new endurance frames and pretty much brand new classic style, and the endurance frames, we couldn't rip them if we tried. So what they do with the endurance frames, instead of welding in that plastic strip, they make a pole pocket. If you're familiar with banners and signage and whatnot, you usually make a pole pocket to send a rod through to keep it nice and square and flat. So they took the same process, and they basically fold over the mesh so that it's got a pocket that you can stick a plastic rod in, and they use a really heavy glue. I mean, like rubber cement heavy. And that is what makes the screen absolutely indestructible. We have screens upstairs that we haven't restretched in 2 years, and the tension on them is still way over 20 newtons. It's incredible. At the trade show, they took one that they sliced holes in and poked all kinds of holes around in the same rubber thing around the side. And then they put it on the floor, and they asked me to jump on it, and I'm jumping on the thing. And then they came up and they put it on the table, and they put the tension meter on it, and it only dropped 2 newtons. Since before, I weigh like 280 pounds, and I'm jumping on the thing, and we were sold instantly, and we've invested heavily into the product, and it cannot be beat. And you fast forward that into, again, I'm not an influencer. I just think this is legitimately the best system out there.
Yeah, no,
the savings on shipping. You're not shipping a huge, heavy ass box of screens anywhere anymore.
Right, you're just shipping the actual mesh.
Just the mesh, and it comes in a little poster tube, and it costs all of $6 to ship the it costs all of $6 to ship the mesh out. And what we realized, I don't know if you send your screens out to restretch, if you just start new every time. We were restretching our screens, and we were spending a fortune restretching.
Well, that's the thing, is like
money.
Yeah, exactly, because we were doing the same thing. There were people like, oh, why don't you restretch? I'm like, dude, it's like $15 or whatever it is to like get them restretched, but it's like you have to ship all the frames.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to pay to ship them back. It's like that $15 just turned into like 24.
We did the math, and if you ship the frame 3 times, we started losing money.
Right.
That was the value of the frame itself versus the mesh, because the aluminum frame is only worth $5, $6, and then the rest is you're paying for the mesh. So that was what we learned. And like I said, we're at this point, I mean, geez, we got to be like a close to $100,000 into screens with
Mhm.
Sherlock. We spent a ton of money on it, but man, we'll never look back. It's
That's
awesome.
the thing with us with statics is like we're using just standard mesh statics like
Hmm.
currently, but we're recycling them out fast. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We're not being like, oh, I have the same shitty static frame for like 3 years.
We were.
It's
That was
like
part
we're
of our
doing
problem.
it like,
We used them
frequently.
to the bitter, bitter end, and
Right.
it was
There's
awful.
like shitload of other ghosted prints in it and it's
Yep.
fucking annihilated.
But the other thing about that Sherlock has explained to me about the difference in the hydro mesh and the S mesh and whatnot is that you typically don't need it if you have the right tension. So
Yeah.
where things like S mesh and hydro mesh and all these things that have like different weave and all that come into play is if your screen isn't tight. You're working harder to get the ink through it because the openings have changed. So with a Sherlock screen, you never have the opportunity to change the opening because it's not going to get any tighter unless you want it to. And that's the other thing that I would mention about the endurance panels is when your screen gets too loose, say it drops from 20 down to like 17, you can actually put another set of rods in the pole pocket and restretch it and get your tension back and get second life out of it
Hmm.
even further. So and you can't do that with a static frame. So that's where we're like mind blown. But I was
Yeah.
just looking at that email and they stretch SMS and hydro mesh and all. They have all that ready to go if you want it, but they don't
Right.
think that you need it because again, your screens are stretched properly and you get the same
I
results.
should get a couple and try them because, like, that's the thing that I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to try out a couple things. I do that with everything, like
Yeah.
white inks or whatever it is you do. I'll get like a bunch of different ones and try them all, and then make my own conclusions. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you can always call a buddy and he's like, "I fucking swear by these. I've used it forever,"
What
and
works for one shop doesn't work
right,
for the next.
right, exactly. So it's like I try to like pick and choose things that work for us and
Yeah.
that's the thing like right now I think I'd be really interested in trying a Sherlock like you're doing and
Hmm.
then try like just do a print. So I'll do like a 3-color print, let's say, and I'll do our current screens, the screens that I'm going to get from this other guy that I'm getting samples sent to me now, and
Hmm.
I'll do the exact same print with Sherlock's and I'll see
Yeah.
which one I like better.
Yeah, no,
So
that's the only thing that could be difficult about a Sherlock is that you need the stretching apparatus and all that stuff to make it happen, to put it together.
but
Like
I still feel like if you had that in like a corner of a room to stretch a screen, like you said, like just the savings alone
Mhm.
on shipping frames.
And here's another bonus to Sherlock that some people don't consider. We actually rotate out the mesh that we need constantly. For example, as contract printers who do a lot of metal work historically up to this past March, we used to have at any given day of the week at least 60 to 80 screens that were had 250 and 300 mesh on them to get all that gnarly detail that's usually in
Right.
your average Cannibal Corpse t-shirt. What we since all that work has all but disappeared, I've actually just taken all the mesh off of that, put those panels back on the rack because they're perfectly fine, and restretched them as 156, 200, 123, as
Right.
just regular everyday mesh for Bob's Plumbing Company or something like that, and without spending any money. And not even adding more resources or anything like that. Because if we had all static, then that means we got 80 screens that are sitting around not doing anything until metal comes back, whereas I'm still using those same frames and I just put the mesh in
Right.
storage and now
I
I
just
just
like the idea of
restretch.
like if I'm using that screen and I bust it, that same day I can have that screen back in rotation.
Talk about minutes,
Right.
because and they're printing skateboards out there, what we're talking about earlier. So I grabbed the screen on the rack that had the least amount of tension on it. It's a 25 by 36 225 mesh, and it had, we label what the tension is. It was labeled 23. That was the lowest tension we had. I exposed the image that's going on the skateboard, and Chris went upstairs and he actually took the mesh off and put it back on, not all the way stretched. There's two sets of rails on the bar, and it's
Right.
stretched to the outer rails to get you the most tension you need. He went and took the mesh off and restretched it in the middle rails just to have it a little bit looser, and you couldn't tell the difference on the print. So, like after an exposed screen, he took it off and put it back on.
That's funny.
it's amazing. And just being able to do that stuff like whenever you need to. We had an exposed screen. I didn't have to go make a whole new one or anything like that. We just took it apart and put it back together looser
Yeah.
in minutes.
Yeah,
It's
for
pretty
real.
awesome. So
What do you think is next for you? Like, I know you were talking about now that like Corona came and you saw like your numbers and stuff. Like, what's the next evolution in your
well,
shop?
the next evolution, what it seems to me is I think mail order is here to stay.
Hmm.
I never wanted to get into the mail order business. I never wanted the customer service. I don't have sympathy for stupid people that can't put the right address in and like, you know, I never got my package. All right, well, it was shipped to this address. I don't live there anymore. Well, what do you want from me? You know, like I'm just unsympathetic to that kind of person.
Hmm.
Like, you know, and then you get the people that, oh, I wasn't paying attention. I wear a double X and they got shipped an extra small because they didn't click on the size of the t-shirt. You know, like
Hmm.
again, I don't have sympathy. So I wouldn't be a good manager of a mail order business at all because
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. But I believe mail order is here to stay. Like many other shops in the country, in the world, whatever, got into small business fundraising. You know, when COVID first hit, and we were late to the party, but that hasn't stopped us from paying out. We're on the brink of doing $55,000 paid out to businesses, and at this point, it's mostly rock clubs that have closed down or are on the brink of closing down that people want. You know, we didn't get all that many pizza places and yoga parlors and things like that, but we did get venues around Boston and Connecticut and Rhode Island that are trying to keep their doors open, whether it's a jazz club or, you know, something as big as the Worcester Palladium or anything like that, that has, you know, real concerts. These people need help, and we've been doing that. And I'm not interested in shutting down my program. Yes, we're busy, but I can print 25 to 50 random shirts during the week. You know, they're all single color prints. So you got an 8-color manual. That press just sits with all these, you know, screens in it every day anyhow. So
Yeah.
we just rack out another thing and we send it out. I don't think it's going anywhere. So right before COVID hit, there was a local reggae band that's actually doing really well for themselves. And they were trying to take their merch out of a garage operation that was being done locally and onto a bigger scale merch operation. And we had done some shirts for them. And, you know, I said, look, I'm not offering mail order. I said, if you want us to do your printing and do your tour supply and all that kind of stuff, I'm all for it. But I'd rather just partner with somebody that does mail order 24/7 and that we do work for. And they were like, oh, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, when you talk to Forward Merch up in New Hampshire, we supply their mail order store 365 days a year. So they don't have time to take you on as a print customer, but they do have space to take you on as a mail order customer. So let me do the printing and let them mail the packages out. And they thought that idea was great. Here we are, you know, I got mail order rolling. I'm ready to go back to them and say, so I can do it all in house now. You know, I never wanted
Hmm.
to, but, you know, we have the space for it. We have the means for it. We know how to do it, going all the way back to my touring experience and merch management experience and all that, that we can get orders out. And we've shipped well over 5,000 t-shirts, and the only blemishes were operator error. So, you know, that's something that you can get into. You know, in 2 months, shipping out 5,000 shirts it's no
Yeah.
joke of a mail order business. It's pretty damn good. So I
Yeah.
think that's here to stay, and we just kind of have to see what it's going to go with. You know, one of our longest customers is it's a community beach association, and they do this big fun Labor Day weekend. You know, they'll do a parade with the fire trucks and stuff along the beach, and then 3-legged races and all that kind of crap with the kids. And they usually make about 300 shirts and they sell them on the beach, and the money gets raised, goes to high school scholarship programs. They told me that they're still going to have a Labor Day event, socially distant and all that kind of stuff, but they wanted nothing to do with selling t-shirts on the beach. So I said, we'll do them online. I'll do all the fulfillment. You could do that, amazing, and they're all ready to
Yeah.
go. So that's where I think the next thing for us is basically just kind of eking our way a little bit more in a mail order that we never wanted to do, but I think it's here to stay as another source of revenue.
Yeah. I think we're in kind of the same boat as you right now with that. It's like I never wanted to get into it. We kind of found a little bit of a way around it because before everybody wanted to do fulfillment where we just stocked a ton of shit.
Yeah,
Now we're just doing it where we're just on a rotation of like once a week printing everything that's sold and then shipping it out.
yeah.
Um, But
Well,
I think
that's tough doing it that way. For me, with mail order, there has to be a clear divide of who owns the stock, who's carrying the stock, and that sort of thing, and just having that open relationship. I'm going to print 100 shirts, but you're going to pay for them. As soon as the money comes in, whether you want the band to pay for it up front, or it doesn't even have to be a band, or the agreement is that we keep the money until the initial bill is paid for, then you get your percentage, if you want to roll the dice on that, if they're actually going to sell anything or not. And then moving forward with that about how you handle reprints, because if they sell out a medium, you're probably going to want to print minimum. A lot of the companies that we work with carry a print minimum of 24 shirts per color. So if you have, a 10 color front, you're going to want to print 240 pieces. And if you only need medium, that's not going to happen.
mm-hmm.
So then you start thinking about things like direct to garment, that kind of stuff, so that you can start doing things on demand and whatnot, which we're never getting into direct to garment as far as I can tell. I have no interest in it, but those are the hurdles that you're going to hit with mail order.
Yeah.
Just keeping that stock and keeping it fresh, updated, in stock, and moving, because a lot of that has to fall on the shoulders of the customer. I can't reach your customers, you have to push that.
Exactly.
So
yeah, well, that's the thing with us is like, I'm not offering it to everybody. Like,
yeah.
I'm only offering it to people that I know have the numbers to consistently have like a big productive store. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'll do a famous person or something that has a lot of followers or whatever, and they'll promote their store constantly, and we'll print like a couple hundred items every Wednesday or whatever.
Yeah.
And then by like Thursday, Friday, we're packing them and shipping them.
Yep.
So that's kind of like how we're doing it, is we're just doing it every week. But I feel like, yeah, eventually you're going to get to the point where.
Do you get any pushback from Amazon culture doing it like that, where it's taking too long and it's not shipping the same day that the order was placed?
We do a little bit, but I feel like it's my fault, because I'm still learning about all this fulfillment stuff, to where I haven't clearly put it on the store enough. Like, it is there. It's there that says whoever the store's for, their orders are printed in bulk once a week, and then they ship out. But like the platform I'm using for the store has it automatically in there to where, like, when you purchase something, it has like a turnaround time, and then it says it'll ship on this day and all this other stuff. So like, I personally just need to figure that out more to where I can alter it. But I have a note
what is the
on
platform
the
you're
store.
using?
Inksoft.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't mess around with Inksoft at all. For our e-commerce, we went right to Shopify, and I love it. I think.
Well, that's the thing, is I've never used Shopify either. It was one of those things, again, where like I reached out to other printers that I knew, and I was like, "What are you using and why?" And some people said Shopify, some people said Inksoft. So I ended up giving Inksoft a try. I just like the fact with Inksoft that I can basically set up a store so I could be at home fucking playing Call of Duty or whatever I'm doing at home. And I could have somebody hit me up on Instagram that's like super noteworthy or whatever. And they'll be like, "Hey, I heard from so-and-so that you do this thing. I want to set up a store." Like, I could literally hop on my computer at home, have a full store set up for them, mocked up, everything done in like 10 minutes.
Yeah. I think that's the same thing with Shopify, but I'm also new to Shopify.
Well, that's the thing. I've never used Shopify either. So
I didn't either. I signed up for it. I mentioned Levitate earlier. They use Shopify and they swear by it. They were getting mad at me last year. Not mad, but in concert touring, the entire industry has gone towards At Venue. And At Venue is a local, touring night of sales platform that doesn't communicate with Shopify, which is what most of these bands have on the back end for e-commerce. So I've been pushing for Levitate, when I vend all this stuff for their music festival and whatnot, that they use that venue. This is industry standard for selling t-shirts at a show. And they're arguing with me that industry standard is Shopify for our retail store and our restaurant and our e-commerce and all this other thing. So I actually put a meeting together and I talked to At Venue and I said, "When are you going to put this together with Shopify?" And said, "We're working on it." So that was one of the reasons that I was excited about starting our own store, is that Shopify it was simplistic and user friendly. I was able to set up a store and get it going, like you said, in a matter of minutes. And I don't even know everything that it offers. I can tell you that the data that it collects, sales, how long people stared at your items, how many different things they looked at, recapturing, abandoned carts, all that stuff. It's really phenomenal. The amount of data that it's collecting from your customers and knowing exactly what they want, the sales trends, the hours of the
What
day.
time they go to sleep.
Oh my God, it's awesome. Where these people came from, this one came from Instagram, through Facebook, through Bill Sullivan. It's got all that real creepy crawly data in there, and it's impressive if you have time to look at it. I haven't had time to really venture around and look at it.
This one's O negative.
Yeah, right. I found out that I'm O negative recently. I gave blood for the first time, so I'm surprised Shopify didn't already know that. But it's one bonus that I have for me is I did an industry night with SJC Drums a long time ago, talking about merch and marketing and sponsorship and that kind of stuff for this local thing that took place out in Worcester. And the guy that put that thing on he left basically booking concerts and whatnot and got into e-commerce and website building, and he's supposedly a Shopify expert. So I said, whoa, I just signed up for a Shopify store and I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm not overly thrilled with what I put together quickly just to get the store launched.
Right.
And he's all about putting a redirection into it and helping me out to get what I'm looking for. And
I feel like that you definitely need that. I feel like anybody, not just you, but like you need somebody to be like, let me hold your hand and get you going. Can you hear that on my mic?
Like something buzzing?
The train.
Oh, the train's going by.
Dude, I haven't been able to have this. Yeah, the train goes by, around midnight, and it's literally like 15 feet from my building.
Yeah, well, I've seen the pictures of how close you are to the train tracks and whatnot, freight train.
It's going to shake everything in here. You see my mic start shaking. See the train go by?
Yeah, I see it. That's awesome.
I'm just every day, like it goes by in the middle of the day too. Yeah. I'm just waiting for one of these days and that fucking thing derails. And it's just going to take this whole building out and kill everybody in it.
Yeah, don't say that. No way.
That's an awful thing to say, but it's like you watch movies like Super 8 and shit where there's just a massive fucking train wreck. And I'm just sitting here like literally everything in this building right now is just like vibrating.
Back in probably 1999 in the Big D van, I used to get made fun of so hard because driving across the country, all you see are freight trains, and I used to count the cars on them. And they're like, "Are you seriously counting train cars again?" I'm like, "What else do I have to do?" We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have laptops. Yeah. You get 12 guys in the van, and we're sharing the same atlas.
Yeah. The thing with this train is like in the middle of the day when it goes through, it like puts through. It's like really slow.
Nice and slow.
The midnight ones, the guy's just fucking got the throttle buried. He's just like, I'm getting where I want to go.
Yeah,
the thing.
That's all. And I know that I've told you once before. I've been to Binghamton once. It was a very long time ago. I think it was Magic City Music Hall. Was it that I looked up? There's that one venue, Dropkick Murphys with the Horror Pops, and I think it was everybody out on that tour as well. The only time I've ever set foot in your town.
Well, that's the funny thing about our town with shows is that from what I've heard is that if you're a venue owner and you're trying to do like big shows, not like local people, but whatever, like they have to be like a certain mile radius from each other in order for like a promoter to want to do
radius clause.
Well, we're in like a shitty spot where like we can't have like anything.
Too close to Albany, too close to Philly.
Too close to Albany, too close to Syracuse.
Yep.
Too close
Syracuse
to New York City.
And Rochester.
Rochester, Buffalo.
Yep.
That's the thing where Binghamton is we're in the center of all of those things.
So
it's like Albany, like Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, and then behind us is like New York City, and then we're also like close enough to the PA border where we're like Philly. Mm-hmm. So it's like we're in the center of all that. So we did get nothing.
Well, the way that works is that you have different markets, and you're in basically a D market, is what it is. When a band has a new record out, typically they hit the A markets first. They're going to skip right over Syracuse and all these other places. They're going to hit Boston. They're going to hit Philly. They're going to hit New York. They're going to go right out to Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, skip over that. Then as the record starts getting older, you start hitting your B, C, and D markets. And the B, C, and D markets are where places where Binghamton comes in because they've already hit the A market and now
Yeah.
they need to hit the smaller places right outside of town. And that usually happens a year or two after the hype of the record, and they're just kind of trailing it out for a little while. And
Yeah.
some bands do it opposite of that, and they do the C and D markets first, leading up to a record coming out. It's the politics of touring is pretty insane, and I got to learn a lot about it and managing bands. And
Yeah.
I never book shows. I got a buddy of mine who's a talent buyer for Bowery Boston, and I was a stagehand at House of Blues for the first 3 years that Acme existed. I was pushing road cases till 2 or 3 in the morning every night, and then printing T-shirts from basically noon to 3, and then racing back to the city for loadout. And I mean, it was nuts. But all those kind of things you learn is from touring and working the bands and seeing all sides of it. It's incredible what goes into it. There's a lot of people out of work right now. Lots.
Well, I think your early days of doing the touring stuff definitely gave you a leg up on the niche that you're in.
I think so. And unfortunately, it's a niche that I'm trying to get out of at the moment. Basically, just based on COVID,
Well, you got
when
your
it
foot in
comes
the
back,
door.
it's going to come back strong. It's going to come back stronger than ever. It's going to be nuts when people can go and have fun at a show again, and there's a vaccine or whatever, and you can pack 10,000 people in a room. At some point, it's going to be nuts when it happens. But we don't know when that's going to happen. So now we're venturing into more your line of work.
Yeah. Well, you might be able to, have a department that does shit like I do, and then a department that does nothing but touring stuff.
Yeah, we don't really even try to split hairs. We get this. It's every day brings a new adventure, whether it's band shirts or wooden posters or skate decks or koozies or you name it. There's really not much that we're afraid to try and put a print on for somebody. And I got a lot of digital background too. My wife works for digital, basically marketing companies, and she's been in the billboard business and vehicle wraps and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of have that up my sleeve too. That's why we do, we do band backdrops, stage backdrops, drum heads. I just did 36 drum heads for Dropkick Murphys to hand out as gifts. That's another little part of our business that we don't really promote it all that often, but we do.
Right, but you have it when you need it.
Yeah, we have the equipment to do it. We can make it happen.
So what are some of the shops, and it doesn't even have to be screen printing related, but stuff that you look at for inspiration on social media and stuff?
I look at a lot of other shops to see what other people are doing. Just to see what's cool. I know you guys do a lot of cool prints. I know that Eric down in Texas, he does a lot of cool prints. Everybody's got their demographic of what they do. Some things are interesting, some things are not. The things that I nerd out on are a lot of process in how things work. Denver Print House for a while was very exciting to watch. I mean, they got those rock machines with the inline flocking and foiling and hot stamping. And I mean, that stuff's incredible to watch. And it's stuff that, I don't want to touch with, I want to stay as far away from as humanly possible, given knowing how much.
Yeah. New Buffalo is the same way. I feel like every day they're doing something that's crazy foil or flocking or something. It's dude,
they invented the business that I'm in, as a contract printer for rock and roll. I mean, they invented this, and I started working with the company that kind of picked up where they left off after Gildan bought them. And, there's all that kind of stuff with and Liquid Blue up in New Hampshire. I mean, talk about people that nailed what they do, all this ridiculous, tie-dye stuff that they're custom tie-dyeing their own stuff, and they're developing the tie-dye to go specifically with certain prints that they're doing, and licensing for sports teams as well as the Grateful Dead and all that kind of stuff. And we're in a spot where there's a lot of cool stuff happening. There's another company in New Hampshire called The Mountain, and they do those shirts that you see that might have a Labrador Retriever's face that's the whole front of the shirt, that kind of stuff. That stuff's really impressive. That stuff's always exciting to look at. There's some days you're hopeful that maybe you get the chance to do something like that, and there's other days you're like, ooh, man.
Yeah, stuff that we like to ooh and ah at because we're in it, but we don't want to actually have to be the guy to figure that shit out.
And knowing what we know and talking to the people that we talk to, whether you or Eric or even Liquid Blue and The Mountain and all the Forward Merch and all these other companies that we deal with, we know a lot of the smoke and mirrors that are behind it too, where you might get a video up that makes it look like this is the easiest thing in the world, where The reality is knowing what we know and talking to who we talk to and being friends with who we're friends with, that that might have took them 6 months to put together.
Yeah, to actually figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, that's great. I mean, that print's fantastic, but they only got a total of 36 done per hour, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, that stuff that, goes into it. That's the biggest thing for printing water-based with us. We wanted to get into water-based just so that we could offer it as something else. And it's at the point now where we know how to do it. We're not experts by any means, but we know what goes into it. It's like, I can get you the same results as plastisol as I can get you with water-based. And that's, for the person buying it to determine whether they think it's as good or not. It's everybody's going to have a different opinion, but the matter is that this is costing me an arm and a leg and eating up press time and people time and gas time and utilities. And I could do 25 things in the time I got to do your one thing like this. And that's just the nature of working with the product. And, we're not doing anything necessarily wrong. It's just a slow, painful, awful thing. And we're used to doing thousands of shirts an hour, and it's tough to break that habit and get out of it. So, you try to go around, you try to keep things open, but those are the shops we like to follow. And, most of the followers that I look at it like Seinfeld and Simpsons memes more than anything else, things that make me laugh, there's only so much screen printing I can look at that's exciting.
I know. I love it, and I'll look at it all day long. But like there was a long time where I had a bunch of people that I was following that were nothing but like meme fucking ones. And it was just like, I would find myself like probably an hour of every day or more just looking at those.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I had to like fucking cut myself off, where I was like,
I
need to literally go through and delete all these, because if I don't, it's the same thing like on my phone. Like I deleted the Facebook fucking thing, because for a while you end up on I don't know what it is, but there's something that Facebook does to you where like you get on there real quick to check something.
It's like the perfume that keeps you in a casino, man.
You stumble on a video, and then that video rolls in right into another video and another video and another video. I got to the point where I would literally like shake myself and be like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm like 10 videos deep. Like, and I had to delete that shit because it fucking takes up so much time of your day. So like I've done a thing like an alcoholic or whatever, where I just get everything out of the room that has anything to do with it, so that I don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
So
you're a social media master. I mean, you've done it pretty well. I mean, as far as I know, you have the most followers of a screen printing company on the planet.
Well, I can tell you for sure. I can tell you for sure that none of them are bought. I don't.
It's incredible, the empire that you've built, the social media empire. I don't have the patience or the initiative or even really desire.
The thing is like people ask me too. They're like, how do you have a social media like that works like yours? And I'm just like, I just fucking use social media.
I'm
like,
afraid of people who care that much.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, I don't do like research on stuff. I don't do all this other stuff. I'm just literally using it as intended. Like I take a picture or two a day if I can. I comment and I talk to other people. For me, it's literally a social network. It's like where I can talk to you, or I can talk to any other printer. Like to me, it's a resource that I can like go out and grab a guy from Texas who's doing water-based, that I can be like, hey, how did you do that today? Or I saw this thing, how did you do it? And I get information. Like that's how it works for me. And I comment on people. I fucking make jokes with people. I do all that stuff. So people are like, oh, how do you get this thing? And it's like, well, when was the last time you actually commented on somebody's fucking photo?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're like, never.
Yeah,
and
you gotta like the stuff. You gotta do all that.
You're not being social at all. Like, and for me too, people are like, how do you find the time of the day? It's like, how most of the time gets racked up on my social media? It's because I'm fucking taking a shit.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, I'm like standing in line waiting for my pizza at the restaurant, or
or in the car wash or something.
Right.
Stupid.
Like I get in my car and I'm waiting for like Randy to get in the fucking passenger seat.
Yep.
It's like, or whatever. It's like, I'm using it on downtime for the most part. Like I'm not like, okay, it's 9:30. Let me pull my phone out. I'll do this thing for an hour and a half. It's like, no, it's literally like just a thing throughout the day. Like when I have free time, I'll check it.
Yep. I love following like Eric down in Texas, what he does with Water-Based Ink. He's the king of his craft down there. Him and Valerie I actually got to meet them. Chris and I went to Texas for the SNS product launch back in October, and we got in the car and we woke up in the morning after the trade show thing, and I said, we want to go shoot guns, and he went, yep. So we went to the firing range and shot automatic weapons, and then we got in the rental car and drove to Houston and hung out with Eric and Valerie, and they gave us the nuts and bolts of their operation down there, which is incredibly, it was phenomenal. And got back in the car and went back to Austin, and that was great. And like I said, Denver Print House does amazing things. You guys do fantastic work. I know we do similar stuff in regard, but you guys have such a different demographic of what we do. And like what you guys do with like some of these comic book, creators and things is really awesome. I feel like it's a 50-50 tug of war between art and print. You really need both to make it awesome. Anybody can put a print on a shirt, but if the art sucks, the print's going to suck too.
And that's like really what we strive for, is we try to find those customers, or we just try to align our our Zen with fucking those people. You know what I mean? It's not like we're like hunting them down or cold calling. It's like, you work with, it's like with the band world. Like you work with one really cool guy, you do really good work for him, and shit just shows up. That's
exactly.
Similar.
Yep, that's the same thing. And
it takes a long time. Like we've been doing this for over 10 years now, and it's like we weren't doing that in the beginning. Like we fucking drug ourselves through the mud to get to where we're at. Right. And like we're here because we fucking worked hard at it for a long time. Like I'm not trying to say like, we're the fucking king of this area. It's like, no, like we just do, like you said, we're not the best screen printer in the world, and we don't say we are.
Yeah.
But like
you're not the worst either.
Good, right. Like we do good at what we do.
Yeah.
Like we get somebody that comes to us that's like, hey, like you said, like a comic book shop or whatever. They're like, hey, I have this art. It's cool. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. No problem. And we do it, and we do a good job, and it's fucking, we go to the next job.
Yep. And it's fun to see other companies. For me, when we print for merch companies, it's fun to find the other printers that they use through socials. So for example, we print a lot of stuff for Kings Road. I've worked with a company in Brazil that does all of their printing, not only for Kings Road, but t-shirt as well. So we've printed all the merch for Pearl Jam when they roll into Fenway Park, and this guy does all the merch for them every time they tour South America. So it's great to go on Instagram and see all the stuff he's like similar designs. Last year, 2 years ago when they were out on the road, they had an event shirt where it was some sort of creature that was something to do with the town. So like in Seattle, it was a drawing of a Seahawk, but he put 4 eyes on it. And then the Chicago one was a big old steer and it had 4 eyes on it. And Boston was a Boston Terrier, but he had 4 eyes. And you go down and you get to South America, and I can't remember what like bird or whatever they had on the event shirt, but again, with 4 eyes, and you can see, where things take place and how it happens. And we follow screen printing companies that are in Europe. We work with screen printing companies that are in Europe and merch companies in Europe, and you get to see what the other people are doing. There's other companies in the United States that aren't doing the same bands that we are. Sometimes they do. The Inferno down in Louisiana, they print a handful of bands that used to be customers of our customer forward merch. So it's interesting to see stuff that they're doing. And, you can kind of get a grasp on who left what merch company and whatnot all the time. It's fun to see. And there's new guys like Pyre Press in Pittsburgh. That dude actually bought his first press off of Chris and I like 4 years ago. And now he ended up, we ran into each other on social. I didn't know that he started calling his company Pyre or anything. And we started talking about something, and sure as shit, he was like, I bought a machine off of you. I'm like, you did? What machine? I've only sold like 3 machines. I'm like, which one? And he's like, oh, that Riley Hopkins. I drove up from Pittsburgh with my dad's buddy in a pickup. I'm like, oh my God, I remember you now. Like, so how is it going? He's like, I'm about to buy an M&R. I'm signing the contract tomorrow. And I'm like, that's phenomenal, And now he's got his own brood of metal bands and these things that I've never heard of, and he's doing really cool stuff. And I actually emailed him not long ago, because I got every single shirt that he puts out for these bands has at least one sleeve print. It's the blueprint that he follows for this particular crop of metal bands that are his customers, and it's great. And I have pallets that just belong in his shop. It's a chest and a sleeve built into the same board. I got it from a closeout auction, and I paid next to nothing for them, and I'm willing to give them to somebody else for whatever they want. The only reason that we don't do them is because I can't keep them on the press all the time. You got to take them off and put them on. What's the difference if I do this or I put on the sleeve board? And those kind of politics that go into the, you know, setting up a job. And for him, I was like, you could leave this thing on your machine 24/7 and it would be actually worthwhile for you, I think. And he was all interested in it, but you know, money is always a problem, you know. You just bought a
And
machine, you're not going to
COVID.
go buy, you know, 10 weird pallets.
That's what I just did. I just bought all those sleeve pallets from,
Yeah,
yeah.
I saw that. I mean, it should be interesting. We don't own the double sleeve pallet. We own the single sleeve pallet that you can
I
put
didn't
the
even
size
care.
small.
I didn't even care that it was 2. The only reason why it's 2 and it's important to me is that it doesn't go over the pallet arm.
Mm-hmm. And that's
I
great.
don't want to stretch anything. That's the
Yep.
problem. Is all these sleeve pallets that you get that are single, you have to stretch it over the M&R pallet arm.
Stretch the hell out of it.
And I
get
don't want to do that ever again. So
Yep.
I fucking bought these ones. Like, these guys are like, oh, we can do 2 at once. I'm like, dude, honestly, I don't give a shit if we do 2 at once. Like, I don't
Now,
care. I
now
just
let,
want to
I
work.
was going to ask one thing about that. Your comic book thing and whatnot, I assume that like size small is a bigger part of the order than it probably is for me. Like, if somebody's ordering 100 shirts, I'm doing at most a dozen small out of that 100 pieces. Did you see small that your quantity might be up for those kind of customers? That
It
it's more
might
of a
be the
problem?
same, but the problem is I don't want to fuck up those 12 smalls.
Okay.
You know
see
what I
that.
mean? The problem is that you get an order from a customer that's like, you know, whatever. They're like, I need 200 long sleeves. And they're like,
Mhm.
all right, cool. I'll order the Bella Canvas long sleeves. I'm like, all right, sweet. Well, small, medium, and large, these are like ring spun, you know, more fucking fancy, whatever.
Yeah, they cost a buck
And
more.
yeah, well, the thing is that it's not necessarily that. It's just that the sleeve is smaller.
Yeah.
So it's more fitted. And you go to put it on the sleeve palette and you're like, all right, this can fit. Like, I don't want can fit. I want fits.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see the fucking printer like grab the neck hole and fucking shove it on the palette. And then
Barely
it's right, it's
not ripping it
stretched to
apart.
shit.
And
And
then
it's
all
like,
the ink goes right through it and it starts with, then you got to change the palette paper because the
well,
ink's
yeah,
built up under it and
it's
all that other
that.
stuff.
And the problem with it is too, is that like it's registration issues. So like if you're doing, say you're using web glue on something, like it's a hoodie or something that's stretching to get on there,
We stay away
like,
from that shit.
right. But it's like, say you put that, you're using that only on fleece or whatever. We use water based on everything else.
Mhm.
But say you spray it and you don't get a great spray, but it's stretched on there. After it goes through and gets flashed and all this other stuff, it's moving a little bit because it's stretched so hard and it's fighting to come back.
Yeah.
Then you have registration issues and fucking this and that. And then say
Oh,
you're
yeah.
doing smalls or extra small long sleeves and you stretch it on there. Well, when you take it off, the fucking dude's Popeye with one stretched out sleeve and one normal sleeve. And then it's just like
Yeah.
the prints. The thing is too, is that people always want on sleeves, they always want like rectangular looking text
Yeah.
or an actual fucking rectangle with text in it.
That's
And
what
then
sells.
you go to take the sleeve off after it's stretched so hard, you pull on it, you end up warping all the fucking rectangles and they look like
Mhm.
this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I get that a lot of printers do that. And there's probably printers that are going to say, oh, I've done it for years and they're always fucking perfect and whatever. Like, that's cool. That works for you.
Yep. It's not working for you.
I am trying to make everything out there for my guys as fucking idiot proof as possible.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want them to come in and have a stomach ache or a bad day or whatever, and they fuck up all the shirts because they didn't do the thing that they think they should do with all the other stuff. It's like,
Yep.
I want them to literally be like, oh, sleeve print's cool, slides on perfectly, water-based adhesive, prints like a fucking front chest print, take it off, put it on the dryer, done. Like,
Have you got to put those on the machine and use them yet?
yeah, we bought one. Well, Action sent us one to try
Mhm.
out because I told them I was going to end up buying a bunch of them.
Yeah.
They sent us a hinged one and they sent us the double.
Yeah.
The hinged one I liked because of the idea of, again, it's a single sleeve, but it pops up and you can
Yep.
slide it on and put it down. You're not stretching it. I was
Mhm.
like, all right, that's cool. The problem I had with that is that if I did want to use spray glue, you'd end up fucking annihilating the whole bottom side of it with spray glue. And then you would end up with it all over the outside of the sleeve.
Do
Whatever.
you drag the can along the edge of the board after you use that web glue
Mm-hmm.
and like kind of fling it around the can?
Well, yeah, if you get a good spray, but it's got like a fucking like a, you know, like an actual
Looks like
web
silly
thing hanging.
strings, like
Right.
boogers
We'll
hanging
take the
from the side.
can. We'll take the can and clean it up. But I'm
Yeah,
just saying,
drag it around
like,
the side.
the way that this one was set up is it had the base of it was like a half inch sticking out on both sides.
Yeah.
So even if you sprayed it and you got overspray on anything,
Yeah.
you're eventually going to get web glue on the outside of a sleeve, and it's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
look like
That stuff
people
doesn't even
juice.
come off the inside.
Right. Exactly. They
That's
say
why
it washes off, but
no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It's such bullshit that they advertise. They even sell that stuff. We're so out on all aerosol glues and screen opener and anything that comes in a can that sprays
yeah.
because it's all awful. Every part of it's awful. We use the roll-on glue for everything. I don't care if it's a hoodie. I don't care if it's a jacket. I don't care if it doesn't matter. We use the roll-on glue, and we've timed it, and it takes just as long to use roll-on glue and clean just wipe the pallets down every 5 revolutions as it does to run the press on an 8 index and spray it with that web shit and clean up the edges of the board and hope that you didn't ruin them and get the glue on the outside. And the only thing that takes that glue off of the garments is the spot remover chemical, which is toxic in its own right. And like, it just, no thanks. We just stop using it altogether. We just stick with everything with the web glue. I mean,
we've just been using web glue for hoodies and stuff. That's kind of like, we used to use regular spray glue a long time ago, and we got rid of that and did web just because it's not like a mist of aerosol in the air. It's just like the concentrated.
I convinced somebody on the that Rogue Printers group a long time ago. I had an in-depth conversation with the guy because he was really struggling with the web spray on hoodies and how many that he was ruining. And then he saw the inside of them and what they look like on the inside, which most customers aren't going to see. But you spray the inside of the hoodie, and if it's a zip up and it's open, you can see the big zigzag mess on the inside of the fleece even after several washes. And he was just out on it, and he was asking for recommendations, and all these other people were like, get over it. This is what you have to do, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And I gave him step-by-step, like blueprint patient instructions on how to use roll-on the water-based palette adhesive with hoodies. And he listened to me, and it was just like maybe 3 days ago that he actually put an Instagram post up and said he was showing the pallets or something. I can't remember what it was, but he put it in his story, and he said, thanks Acme Band Supply for walking us through how to do these properly or whatever. But he listened to what I had to say, and he's now not using the web glue anymore and having much better results. It's just like kind of printing with water-based ink after using Plastisol your whole life. You have to train yourself to do something differently. Using the palette glue with a hoodie, the water-based glue with a hoodie, is no different than just patience and understanding of how it works.
The biggest thing is just
staying ahead of it.
Like you said, every 4 spins, just scrubbing the pallets.
Yep. But on top of that, you have your G3 now. Put a roller squeegee in your first head. That gets you from 4 revolutions to 8 or 10. By using the roller squeegee, basically crushes the fleece into the pallet harder than it would be just getting the pass with the underbase. The roller squeegees, Action told us, were invented to go at the end of the press to smooth out the print. We don't do that. We use the roller squeegees first, and we smash everything down and then put the prints on top of it.
Yeah.
And Eric,
it's the same as like the hothead, basically.
Kinda, it's the same thing, but specifically for using hoodies and not using spray glue on hoodies, the roller squeegee, it makes a mountain of difference. So we take that and crush it down, and we have fantastic results. And our lungs are thankful, and the garments are perfect with no glue on the inside and no glue on the outside, and we have less damage and less blemish. And you just got to stay ahead of it. We don't have any more blemish than we would on a run of t-shirts when we print hoodies using the water-based glue.
Yeah, with hoodies, we're always using the hothead. So we do like a pre-shrink spin, where we'll do like a flash and then hothead and then come back around and then actually do the print on it, just for like fibrillation issues and everything else.
We haven't got a hothead yet. The one came up on Digismith a while ago. Guy wanted like $1,000 for it, and I was an hour too late to the post. And
I love it. We use it all the time.
We're interested in it, but until one comes up in the secondhand market again or something like that, I'm not sweating.
It just knocks all the fibrillation down for everything. Like anytime you have any issues with it, it's like, oh, run the hothead, and then it comes back to being beautiful again. So yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we love it. Well, hey man, thanks for doing this with me.
No problem.
Good
anytime.
To talk to
you. Yeah, anytime, man. And
go crack the whip and see if they're done with those skate decks.
They had to have gone home. I can't. I mean, I got a glass door that looks out of the into the shop out back, but where my desk is, I can't see. But there's no way they're still there. They would have came out to the office fridge here looking for beer by now if they're still out there.
Yeah.
So it's all good,
All right,
man.
dude. Have a good night.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
See you, dude.